Hey all, welcome to Geek Freaks. I am Frank and I'm with Jonathan.
Hey, y'all.
And today we're going to be going over the news. Squeaks is going to be breaking down the inside Xbox announcements we had, and then we have an interview about a new upcoming comic book. But first, Jonathan, what have you been watching lately?
We've been watching some good stuff. We just finished watching Breaking Bad as the second or third time for me.
Mm-hmm.
But now, because that kind of rolls into the following series that was a prequel, is Better Call Saul. So we're about halfway through that right now.
Nice.
My wife's been loving this other show called Love Is Blind, which we just finished. It's a very cheesy reality show with couples meeting without getting to see each other and stuff. But she loved it. So if you're really into those social dramatic reality shows or whatever. But yeah, I'm digging Better Call Saul, and I've seen most of it. I don't think I saw the last season. And I'm watching multiple Star Treks at the same time because like you, we grew up with Voyager, and I never really got into the other ones much. But now I realize on channel 58.2, a regular broadcast channel, it's on every night when I go to bed. They play all the Star Treks one after the other. So I usually go to bed when the original series first is airing, and then they do one episode of each series throughout the night. So
That's such a good program. That's a good way to do it.
I'm loving it.
Yeah. Myself, I've been watching HBO. His Dark Material, I'm finishing that up. It's pretty good. It's basically the Golden Compass, for you guys familiar with that name. It's pretty good. I like it. I haven't read the books, so I know there's fans out there that are like, oh, episode 2 went way off the books, stuff like that. If you're not a book fan, it's pretty good. It's all right. I actually liked the movie, so that shows you where I'm at with this. So yeah, it's okay. That's the last of the HBO. I've been watching everything HBO has to offer, just because I'm like, let me kind of go from streaming service to streaming service. I think maybe next week we'll do a rapid fire review where we just kind of everybody pulls together one or two sentences about everything they've been watching during quarantine, and we just kind of have an episode full of just rapid fire reviews, and we just kind of start shooting them out there.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, since we've consumed a lot of content over the last couple months.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and dig into the news. We're going to start off with Taika Waititi. He's set to direct a new Star Wars film. He's been doing really good lately. He's got Thor Ragnarok, Jojo Rabbit. He was a voice in The Mandalorian. And now he's being tapped for a future Star Wars film. No news whether this is a trilogy or just a standalone. He will also be co-writing this with Leslie Headland. Headland worked on Russian Doll. That's a good one on Netflix. The Bachelorette, not so good. And a new Star Wars series coming for Disney+. That's a good sign right there, because if she's working on this Disney Plus series, they must like it enough to say, like, you know what, why don't you help also with one of our movies? So that shows that we have a good series coming up. What do you think about Taika Waititi, and how do you think he'll do with a Star Wars film?
Well, I didn't care for Thor Ragnarok myself, and I haven't seen Jojo Rabbit, but I love The Mandalorian. I think they did a great job with just the keeping it in the Star Wars world, but just giving it its own feel, its very own like unique, style and everything. So I love it, and I hope that they continue that with the new Star Wars series.
I get him confused a lot with like his works with James Gunn, because I feel like they have a similar idea when it comes to like the space stuff.
Yeah,
So I have a feeling it will look like a Guardians of the Galaxy, which to me that sounds great.
yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and on Mandalorian, I can't remember the name, but he's the robot, the droid. That's an assassin, and
Oh, yeah.
what a great character. He did a really good job bringing that character to life. I'm assuming he's gonna probably play something in this future movie as well. That's kind of how Taika Waititi does things. Um, Thor Ragnarok, you haven't seen, or you don't like that one. I really like that one. It's one of my favorites. Uh, Definitely comedic leanings. So maybe we'll get something where it follows, I don't know, Lando, something like that. Some side character that can be funnier. Maybe it'll be more of a comedy in the Star Wars universe, which we need that. We need Star Wars, just like we do with Marvel. It needs to diversify if it's going to continue. It just cannot,
Mhm.
it can't still be these Luke Skywalker stories, you know what I'm saying? So it
Yeah.
needs to diversify. What
I would
kind of movie
like.
do you want him to make?
Well, so I was just gonna say too, if we're trying to go comical, which action's great, and Mandalorian covers a lot of that and stuff, but if they did want to go something a little more family friendly and comical, it'd be funny to have an adventure where you're following just a couple of droids, just like how we saw
Yeah.
R2 and C3PO. Like the droids kind of get tossed around and passed back and forth from ships, and they're just very minuscule side characters that sometimes save the entire galaxy or whatever, make big moves, but it'd be kind of funny just to see, the life of them. Like when the Jedis are sitting at the table talking, all their droids are probably in some side room just kind of chatting about, whatever droid stuff. What do droids talk about? I don't know, but it'd be kind of funny to see like a behind the scenes of, it'd be like The Help almost. You're kind of watching, what do these servants to the masters do with their spare time, and then see them come to, develop humanity or be more than just a droid kind of thing.
And it's oftentimes the better story. It's just like in Downton Abbey, the downstairs is usually the better story than the upstairs.
Exactly.
The 2 robot pairings, when you said that, I was like, oh man, I want to see the Portal 2 robots.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That kind of sassy robot life, that would be hilarious in the Star Wars universe.
They're
oh man.
starting to develop sentience, but it's not very, very well developed yet, I guess.
Yeah, and they're just kind of like, yeah, human life, I get it, on and off switch, kind of for them too. That'd be pretty great. Moving on to our next thing here, Tom Cruise and Elon Musk are working with NASA to film a narrative film in space. So this is actually going to be a story-based, it's not going to be a documentary like that. Think of like Gravity or something like that. According to a NASA administrator, Jim Bridenstine, they will be filming on the International Space Station, and this is needed to inspire a new generation of engineers and scientists. What do you think about this, man? I'm not a big fan of this myself because I don't like my money or my tax dollars going to filming a Tom Cruise movie. And I don't think you need to use this to inspire a new generation. You are NASA. Promise us you're going to Mars and people will flock to you. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
this seems weird.
I think NASA saw a huge boom back in the 80s, right? And everybody was all, excited for space and stuff. And then, since then, before then we put a man on the moon. I don't remember when, but
it's 60s. We did that.
Yeah, and now it's NASA's just doing the thing. I don't know what they're working on right now. I'm not excited to find their latest update and see the report, every Saturday morning of what they're doing because people just don't care right now, I think. So to me, the big factor in this is where's the money going?
Yeah.
If it's going to the people that made the movie and they're just going to pocket it like they would any other movie, then you're using, a tax-funded or government-funded space station to benefit yourself. That's corruption. That's all bad. But if it's going back into NASA or back into a program to help bring, kids, get kids interested in the space program and put them on the track to be an astronaut or something, then that's great. If it takes putting together, volunteers that are professionals in the film industry and putting them together with, scientists and astronauts that are, that know all the other end of it, then put that stuff together to present a beautiful picture of what space exploration could be and inspire children. I think that's great as long as it's in the long run still focused on, the raising money for NASA or for that charity, not a facade that's just going to be putting money into somebody else's pocket.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, is the International Space Station is international, so it's owned by multiple countries. So when the United States is using their portion to film a movie, and then maybe the funds from this, maybe this makes $500 million if it's on kind of the smaller side, really, for a Tom Cruise movie. If it does that, that's $500 million that I think should be going back into the space station. It's something that we work hard with other people, and it's a really unifying symbol of ours. And the fact that Elon Musk, he's been working with NASA a lot lately, which I actually do like that because he's been using the SpaceX. We have that. I think it's coming up quite soon. I have a reminder on my phone for it. We're going to be launching an American back into space from American soil again, using SpaceX to go to International Space Station. So that's pretty amazing right there. That's cool. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you're right with excitement in the space program. The 60s, it was huge. 70s, of course, still leaning off the whole 60s thing. The 80s, it took a dip. That's when they tried the Challenger stunt that didn't work out. But you still had those young kids that went to go see Star Wars in 79 and everything like that they kind of, that was their peak of interest. So then we had a plethora of scientists that saw that, and the next generation kind of, I think, also bolstered a little bit of the science thing behind it. Mm-hmm. But the idea of, okay, now let's not just create this narrative movie that might inspire scientists, but let's also use government funding to do it. I really don't like that. To me, the fact that NASA's so behind this, I'm just not a big fan of this.
I would say angle it the other direction, and it isn't a Tom Cruise movie that they're using a NASA space station. I would say as long as the funding is right, people will support it. It's just like a charity of any kind. If it's going the wrong way and it looks like it's going in someone's pocket, people are gonna back off, and this looks dirty and walk away. So if it was Tom Cruise is volunteering his time, unpaid, to NASA to help support this program, and he gets all kinds of great PR from it and stuff, and looks like a good guy, and NASA gets the benefit of this film being made, then that's awesome. And like you're saying, if it makes $500 million, go straight into the space station. Doesn't go into a U.S. program to help kids get into it. Yeah. It goes into either an international program or straight back into funding a space station.
Yeah, even if they were to pay Tom Cruise, then it feels like one of those kind of like the old school PBS things, like Reading Rainbow or something like that, where I'm just like, I'm very proud of this because now it's money being used for a good cause, and it's actually controlled by, I don't know, people that I trust a little more than Elon Musk and Tom Cruise. We'll have to see how it goes. I think this is one of those things where people are going to be paying attention to the funding on this project more than any other project we've seen in the past. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. It's not a Mission Impossible, by the way. I assumed at first when I was reading the story, I was like, oh yeah, this will be a new Mission Impossible movie. And I've been loving all the recent Mission Impossibles, but no, this is going to be a whole new project.
But it is about the space station itself, right? It's not just a space movie that we're using that as a setting?
No, I think it's just a regular... It might be about the space station. I don't know. They didn't say it is necessarily about the space station.
Okay. But if I assumed it was like a documentary, but not based in fact or whatever, but more like a what the future can hold if enough kids get involved in science.
It's a narrative story, so it's actually like terrorists are attacking the International Space Station. Luckily, Tom Cruise is there to save the day. It's that kind of thing.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes it a little more cheap, but we'll see. Hopefully it works out, and hopefully it sparks the attention that they're looking for.
Yeah. Next up, this one I'm thinking Jonathan will have some good opinions on. Demolition 2 has been announced by Sylvester Stallone. During an Instagram Q&A, Stallone answered a few questions. It was actually a very good Q&A. He's looking good for his age and like that. But the one that kind of grabbed everybody is somebody asked him, like, hey, do you think we'll ever get a Demolition Man 2? And he says, I think it's coming. This is a quote from him. I think it's coming. We're working on it right now with Warner Brothers. It's looking fantastic, so that should come out. That's going to happen. Sylvester Stallone, he said that amongst other questions. So, John, what do you think about a sequel to Demolition Man? Do you think there's a room for it? And what are your thoughts on this?
I think it's fantastic. I wish we would do sequels of some of these, really good, 70s, 80s, 90s movies now more than ever. I know we've seen several sequels lately, but especially this movie, I remember, I don't know if we were just talking about it or if I've seen memes joking about the 3-shell, trick in the bathroom.
Yeah, with toilet paper demand so high, everyone's been joking around about how much we need them 3 shells.
Yeah. But the whole movie is so funny, and one thing I really like about it, and I think we're starting to develop another version of it now too, is seeing an older generation's perspective of what they think the future is going to look like.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Like their hover bikes, they have these things that are just this huge, gaudy, Harley-looking thing that you could probably fit 8 people on. But it's a hovering, police motorcycle, and it's so funny to think like that's what, and their shoulder pads. That's what they thought was going to be the symbol of your level of authority or power. You got these big metal heavy plating shoulder pads. Like that's
you're
a
thinking
symbol
of Judge Dredd.
Authority. Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. Right. That's not on this.
But they both came out the same. Dude, I do that all the time. It's so hard. Yeah. This is a Judge Dredd. This is Demolition Man, the one where he was frozen to fight, and he comes back to fight Wesley Snipes.
Yeah.
They're
But
both really good.
It's the same thing though. It's the 80s representation of their expectations of the future.
Yeah.
And so I hope if we remake it, we do something a little different, but still have that same our version of what the past thought the future was going to look like. That's with modern technology too. It'd be really cool to see.
There's some things, it's funny when they do that, because then there's some things that do actually kind of come true, where like Sandra Bullock had this tablet where she's able to FaceTime with somebody, and at the time you're like, whoa, the future's crazy. That's what phone calls would be like. And now it's just like, yeah, it's FaceTime. Great. My grandpa's calling. Like that. So we have, I would like to see that again. And we had that in the past too, like Flash Gordon movies would be brought back again all the time. And now we have like the 80s Flash that was basically making fun of what the past thought the future would look like. I would love to do that. I don't necessarily want them to predict what the future's like from here on out. I want them to, again, imagine what the 90s people would have thought the future would look like. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And one of my favorite bits is the fact that there's only a few fast food restaurants, and now they're actually fine dining. So the Taco Bell is this really nice restaurant, And like that, of course, it was a tie-in sponsorship with Taco Bell, but it was a funny bit where she's like, "Oh, the gordita" or whatever, you know.
But when you look at McDonald's these days, they've been remodeling all the McDonald's around here to look like a Starbucks.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, and actually the McCafe and all that. So they are trying to fancy things up a little bit.
So
The self-driving cars. It's just funny to think of the things that kind of came true, and when they did come true, they're like, but it's a lot simpler than what you guys imagined. Like this crazy technology.
What's funny though is to what extent the movies, guide our technology, our development, because we see a hovering car, like, oh man, that'd be so cool, or a self-driving car, like that'd be so cool if we could do that. So people strive to achieve what somebody else imagined and emulated.
That happens often, especially with Star Trek. Star Trek fans all know this, but if you're not a Star Trek fan, you might not be aware. A lot of the technology that's made up in Star Trek inspires our future inventors. The best example of this is the old tricorders. The way they used to be able to talk when they flipped open this device and they would talk to each other long distances. That was an inspiration for phones, the cell phones. That's why they flipped open and stuff like that back in the day. And little things like that, the touchpads that they use on the not on the holodecks, on the command deck. I can't remember the word for this, Jonathan, but you know it probably. That
on actually,
so that inspired your iPad and your iPhone's touchscreens. So there's different things like that. So it's funny to see how the future can be dictated by these movies. This one in particular, I'm hoping kind of just follows, maybe 10 years afterwards. Of course, Stallone will be older. What do you think the story will be for this one?
See, I haven't really put a lot of thought into that. I don't know. I have no idea, honestly.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's Stallone that's like, maybe he's trying to mentor a new batch of new recruits, and he's kind of the grizzled guy, because he looks like that grizzled old dog that's still around, and while everybody's still kind of getting their tickets for cursing and things like that, he's still kind of over there cursing and just taking the tickets, and he's that grumpy old man who's trying to teach them the old ways and how you still need the old days to do things right. It feels like something Stallone would do anyways.
Yeah. There still had a lot of people in that cryogenics program, right, that were still frozen.
Yeah, so there could be all kinds of villains popping out of there.
Yeah, and maybe they're gonna decommission that program. Like, we realized this was a bad idea, and these people aren't being going through rehab the way we thought, or something like that.
Yeah,
being properly rehabilitated. So they're gonna decommission it, and all the frozen people are gonna have to be either reintegrated or imprisoned the old school way or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe they like, oh, this is inhumane or whatever, and then in the process of doing that, he's sitting there like, no, you guys can't trust him, and so he's trying to hunt them down. That actually sounds like a really good series now that I'm thinking about it, but that would be a really good idea. Yeah. All right, next up we have Nicolas Cage is going to be playing Joe Exotic in a Tiger King series. Now, Jonathan, I want to confirm you've watched Tiger King, correct?
Yes, I watched it all. It's pretty crazy for sure.
It is nuts, yeah.
When I think like who could play Joe Exotic, there's a few ideas out there, but when you say Nick Cage, all of a sudden it's like, damn, that would work. He could be that crazy.
He is so that crazy.
Yeah. So that'd be really, really cool to see.
So this is one of two series that are happening, and what's really interesting is these are actually both in development in 2019 after the John Oliver shout out for Joe Exotic kind of created this first initial buzz for him. Mm-hmm. So after that shout out, then we got a podcast called the Joe Exotic Podcast, and then we had a series on the Texas Monthly article series called Joe Exotic: A Dark Journey into the World of a Man Gone Wild. Those were inspired by the John Oliver thing, and both those things inspired these two series that are coming up. So one of the series is with Nicolas Cage in the lead role, and that one will follow off of the Texas article. And it'll be produced by CBS and Imagine Television. Imagine's ran by Ron Howard, so if you guys are familiar with Imagine Television. That one sounds like it's going to be the high budget version, and with it being on CBS, it might be, I don't think it'll be CBS All Access. Well, do you think it'll be CBS All Access or on the regular show?
It's a little edgy, his story in general, so it'll probably be on All Access. And
the hype behind it's going to be so big that it might actually get people to get the subscription. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So maybe they want to do that. The other one is actually being done by Kate McKinnon. If you guys are SNL fans, you all know who that is. If you're not, then she's the blonde one from the newer Ghostbusters. And so that one's going to be following the same story, but she's going to be playing Carol Baskin. So it'd be great to see that too. And that's following off of the podcast, the Joe Exotic podcast that came out last year as well. So just to give you guys kind of a scope, this number kind of blows me away a little bit. Give you a scope of the interest in this. 34.3 million views in the first 10 days on the release in Netflix. Isn't that crazy?
That's insane. I would like to see them stretch it out. I thought the show was pretty funny, but pretty interesting, very weird. But
yeah.
There was a lot going on in his life, and I feel like there was a lot of gaps in between we probably didn't even hear about. So I think if they wanted to kind of stretch it out into a longer arc, they could easily do that. But I'm hoping the second series you're talking about, I'm hoping it's all from Carol Baskin's perspective.
That would be cool, really, yeah. Because then you have like this guy that she's already kind of loony, right? And there's all kinds of questions there with her husband. But then you have this guy who's always just trying to like put snakes in her mailbox and stuff like that. I mean, it could be funny and of course terrifying. But I would actually like to see a little comedy series out of this. I just thought about this when you're talking. Wouldn't it be funny if there was like an Office version of this show where Joe Exotic is the Michael Scott? And so he's just got crazy ideas they're like, oh, we're going to do Olympics, but with tigers, stuff like that. That could be a lot of fun.
I could easily see that happening. That'd be perfect.
Oh man, now I want to see Michael Scott run a tiger facility like this. Oh, that'd be great.
Speaking for Michael Scott.
Yeah. Speaking of Nicolas Cage, we actually have a National Treasure TV series coming up for Disney Plus. This was confirmed by producer Jerry Bruckheimer, who revealed in an interview with Collider, the new series will follow a group of younger explorers as they hunt down treasure. And there's no news whether or not Nicolas Cage will actually join the cast, but I think he would be a good person to kind of set them off on their journey. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got, these hints or whatever, or maybe he's a professor. Actually, I think he probably will do this. He is a professor already. He's a professor, and maybe some of his students start to kind of catch on, and then he's kind of their advisor from there.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I mean, I remember when the movies first came out, it's, very interesting. I loved the movie.
Same, man.
But now, I imagine this being on Disney Plus. This is probably going to be geared more for the younger kids, anyways. Mm-hmm. And I think that's good. I think that's great. I hope it is. But I imagine like the Hannah Montana, age group or whatever.
I hope it's not that. Yeah. Hannah Montana and stuff like that, and Zach and Cody, they're a little too young for me. I'm hoping this will be at least young adults, teenage, like Arrow level. I'm hoping at least that much.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we'll see, but that's what I would imagine the way when you talk about that, like a group of kids that are exploring and hunting for treasure and stuff. It's great to pique kids' interest and teach them a little bit more about American history or it doesn't have to be American, but just history in general. But I don't think it's gonna be the same like age group as the movies are.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it'll at least be a little bit younger.
Yeah, so I probably wouldn't watch it myself, but it does sound interesting, and I hope that it does well.
I would like to see an actual National Treasures, like maybe AMC series, something like that, where you have the enemy faction chasing them down, trying to get to the clues first. Just like the first movie, I think really did a good job with that, where you had Sean Bean's character constantly on his tail. Yeah, that was really good.
You know what? I honestly, this would take a lot of doing, but it would be really cool. Is a National Treasure reality show. Think like Survivor mixed with Amazing Race, mixed with American history. That
would be really good.
Yeah, you have to go hunt stuff. I mean, like, treasures would be planted, and you have to go find clues. Go to, the Empire State Building and count how many of these lights are on a certain floor or something like that, and then that tells you what coordinates to find this next clue, kind of thing.
Yeah, that does feel like an Amazing Race thing. Maybe like it'd be also good as a Carmen Sandiego kind of thing like that.
Oh, there you go.
Because that's when you played the game back in the old Max, it would do that where it would be like, oh, I'm in the city with a tower that's pretty Eiffel or some random thing like that. You know what I'm saying? And then you're like, oh, I know, I'm in kindergarten. I figured that out. That's Paris. That would be kind of a fun version of that. Maybe, I don't know. That's a good idea. I like that idea of a reality TV show.
Yeah.
Somebody let Disney know. John's got a good idea on this one.
Yeah, just cash me out. We're good.
There you go. Write a check. Next up, Disney's on fire. We have a new Pirates of the Caribbean movie before you turn things off. This is a reboot, fully new cast. According to Dis Insider, which is a Disney Insider website, their source, Daniel Reichman, the film will have an entirely new cast and will be focused on Red from the Disney World ride. Red is kind of this, like, she's a female red-headed pirate that is kind of that... I don't need anybody's help. She totes a rifle, and she's kind of this badass character. on the rides. They actually recently remodeled her in 2018, which kind of was kind of the first hint that she might be coming into the movies, because she fully got a remake and is much more of a leading character on the ride. She actually has now a character that walks around the park too, so you can take pictures with Red. And there's a Funko Pop for Red. So clearly they've been kind of building her up. There is nobody specifically casted for it yet, but everybody's saying it'll probably be Karen Gillan. She's from the Jumanji movies, and she's in Avengers and all that as Nebula. Jonathan, have you seen Jumanji yet?
No, I haven't.
Okay, I got to get you those movies, man. I think they're right up your alley, actually.
Yeah. But
if you guys know Jumanji, she's the main character in Jumanji, the main female lead. And then in Nebula, it's hard because, of course, she's in full makeup, but she's also in Nebula. So I think this is going to be really good. It's got the writers from Chernobyl and from the previous films that are working together for this. The Chernobyl was very well written. I love Pirates of the Caribbean. I haven't actually watched the very last one because I was just like a little bit of fatigue. But even the bad Pirates of the Caribbean have been somewhat entertaining, and the good Pirates of the Caribbean have been fantastic. I like the first trilogy, and a lot of people don't like the first trilogy as a whole. They don't like the third and second one. But I really like it as a whole. I dig pirates, sea thieves. What are your thoughts on this, Jonathan? What do you want out of this new franchise?
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, everybody liked Pirates of the Caribbean, or most people liked Pirates of the Caribbean, especially the first few movies came out. Mm-hmm. I really like how they made... the ride was already a huge hit, so that's why they made the movie. And then they made some changes to the ride to kind of mesh with the movie and emulate it somewhat. So I'm excited for this because I'm hoping if this comes out and it's a big hit, they update the ride again, and half could be old style, half could be the new, or add some new elements to it. But I'm excited. I hope it goes really well. I like to hear that they're using Red, so they're trying to go with the powerful female lead thing. Yeah, it sounds what it sounds like, which is great. I mean, a lot of movies and shows have been doing that, and it seems to be a hit. One thing that would be really nice is if this doesn't... I know this is going to be kind of a reboot, but I'm hoping at some point they could mash together, bring the characters into the same world. Just have them, you're following different characters at different times kind of thing would be cool.
Yeah, I could see maybe like a reference to, there was Captain Sparrow that did this or something like that. Or maybe his dad is still around, who was the one that's making the rules. I really liked that scene when they had the rules. Something like that would be cool.
Yeah, and so I'm hoping this doesn't target a much younger audience, because the previous movies were already young adult but still family friendly, very well balanced, and so I'm hoping they stay in that kind of genre. A little dark, a little edgy is cool, but not just go Halloween dark. Don't go gory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is a good idea. The visuals have always been very good. The story can be good. They did talk about going into a new direction with them, so it's not necessarily going to be the same kind of storytelling. That's fine with me. There were two very famous and popular women pirates. I can't remember the names for the life of me right now, but yeah, they're very interesting characters. So it would be really cool to see what that's going to look like in film form. I'm excited for this. I think it's really good. I like Pirates of the Caribbean. Yeah, it'll be good. Moving on to the next one. The Mandalorian cast Boba Fett. I'm super excited about this, guys. So Boba Fett was teased in season 1 of Mandalorian, episode 5, the very last part. You see him walk up. He has like the Spurs jingle in his boots, and he has the cape. You can see the cape, and you can hear like a little bit of a beeping from his armor. So we see him walk up. It's just his feet, and then he's looking at a bounty that he had just lost that died. So that was teased back in season 1. We now have confirmation that not only is he in season 2, but they casted Tamora Morrison as Boba Fett. Now, Morrison is known for being Jango Fett in the Clone Wars. You remember Jango Fett from the Clone Wars, right?
Yeah.
I'm talking about. Okay. So this Jango Fett, they cloned all the clone army off of him, and then Boba Fett is his cloned son. So it is his son, or it's his clone, but they made sure not to give him the advanced aging, so he's kind of like his son. So that's, the quotations around father there. Boba Fett is presumably going to be working with Moff Gideon on hunting down Mando and Baby Yoda. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I mean, Boba Fett, of course, he's a favorite of so many people, including he's one of my favorites. What do you think these two on the same screen is going to be like?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be fantastic. I think he is the reason why people are watching The Mandalorian. for the most part, they didn't know about Baby Yoda until it got started.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
So I think there's so much hype behind him already. People love Django and Boba from the movies. Mm-hmm. So I think just bringing him in is going to be fantastic. People are going to have high expectations, no doubt. So they have to take their time and do it right. But I think it's going to really push the second season forward significantly.
Yeah, I hope I hope one of two things. Either it's a short arc, maybe we just get 1 or 2 episode little cameo thing that will eventually lead into another series in the future about Boba's and his redemption arc, or it's a season-long thing where he's constantly just on his tail, just trying to chase him down. That'd be really cool to see too, because Boba Fett, he's one of the only people who could outdo the Mandalorian, and that'd be really cool to see.
And I like how we're learning a lot more about the Mandalorians, which in the past was just Django and Boba to us, or for the most part.
Yeah.
So you kind of want to incorporate the the stars that when you're telling their history and their culture. So it kind of connects the two. I think it's great.
Culturally, I think that's going to be the most fascinating thing about this, because you're going to have two people that are technically not Mandalorians right now. Well, I mean, okay, so let's clear the air real quick. We're both fans of Star Wars. We watch the movies and TV shows. We have not read the books or not a lot of the comics. So I know there's going to be some people out there. I'm looking at you, Rob, a listener from Ronan Geek Official Podcast, who knows the details on this kind of thing. But let me go ahead and break down what's going on here. So we have Mando, who wasn't born a Mandalorian, but during that war, he was basically adopted into the Mandalorian lifestyle, and now he lives by their code pretty strictly, right? Then you have Boba Fett, who's not technically a Mandalorian because he was cloned from somebody who was born a Mandalorian. And Django himself, the person he was cloned from, was banished as a Mandalorian for his actions. So you have two different sides of this coin of kind of not Mandalorian, somebody who's adopted to the Mandalorian culture and is fully indoctrined. And you have another one who was born into it and has left that aside for corruptious ways, It's going to be interesting to see how these two... I can't wait to see some dialogue, That's going to be amazing between these two. I don't know. We're going to have a lot to do. This is going to be really good. This is a really good addition to The Mandalorian.
And at the point we're in last, the Mandalorians were almost extinct, right?
Well, the tribe that we're following got hit hard, yeah. But there are other tribes that have different cultural beliefs, flexible beliefs, maybe. So we'll have to see. Again, that comes to the fact that I don't know a lot about it, just from the movies and the TV shows and stuff like that.
It would be cool if we see some flashbacks, though, to their earlier culture and get more foundation on what their society is built on and stuff.
Right, yeah, because if you look at Clone Wars does a really good job of exploring the Mandalorians. That's actually one of my favorite sources for the Mandalorians. And in that one, they have the helmets off all the time. So then you're kind of like, oh, but wait, aren't the Mandalorians no helmets? And apparently that's just that one tribe. So we'll have to see. I want to see, more flashbacks, more clarification on exactly what the Mandalorians are for us layman's. Yeah, I think what it boils down to is I need to start picking up some books and catching up on some of this stuff.
After you read them, you just go ahead and explain it to me.
Yeah, I'll have to do that. We'll have to do a book club for it and sit around story time. They have the High Republic, I think it's called. Yeah, High Republic coming out, and I'm looking forward to reading that series. I don't know if that'll explore any of the Mandalorian or anything like that, but I think this is what it is. I think we need to start really researching some of the Star Wars stuff because it's fascinating every time we get a tidbit of it. We just need to get more of it.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that is going to be it for the news. Next up, we have some esports from Squeaks, and then we're moving on to